So we've been teaching this class for a couple years now because I think it's important on a number of reasons, and we time it. You'll understand why in just a second. But each year it becomes more timely. And with the unfortunate news from today, so much unfortunate news today here in Israel that it's all the more important to be able to articulate a lot of different things, and specifically our topic today, which I call blessings, wishes, and curses, because those things are very intrinsic to Jewish tradition and thus in Israeli society. And what we're going to look at today is a variety of ways that we, in everyday Hebrew, in everyday life here in Israel, bless, wish, and curse. We're not going to necessarily get into the juiciest of the latter. That is going to be for Wednesday's class, which I'll remind you at the top of the hour. But we encourage all of you to join us on our Wednesday classes for our conversation groups, which are unrecorded. It's to practice the Hebrew we learned here and your Hebrew in general. And thus it's unrecorded. You could say a little bit more, how shall we say, spicier things. But all the more reason to find the language that we can use to bless, wish, and curse on a day like today, unfortunately, in general, and as we head towards the new year. The new year in Hebrew, of course, Rosh Hashanah. We're going to talk next week all about the Jewish holiday season, but today we're just focusing on this topic, and I'll frame it to you as to why specifically just before Rosh Hashanah we're talking about it. So without further ado, let's get started. If you have questions for me, like I said, Q&A only. Chat is for everything else. Please keep the personal to a minimum. With that, let's get started. So I said we're framing this in terms of not just what, unfortunately, the news today, but in general. And so I want to share with you a little bit more specifics. One of the many traditions of Rosh Hashanah in general, and specifically here in Israel, is what we call the Seder Rosh Hashanah. Some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. Remember that in Israel, as opposed to where many of us are from around the world, in Israel, the majority of Jews come from a Sfaradi or a Mizrahi background, meaning coming from the Mediterranean, the Middle East, North Africa, even beyond. Whereas for some of us, whether we're from North America or the United Kingdom or elsewhere around the world, the majority of Jews are coming from Central and Eastern European countries, Ashkenaz, as a general sense, right? One of the traditions that's caught on by many communities, regardless of where they come from in diaspora, is called Seder Rosh Hashanah. Seder means order, but it's based on Leila Seder, the Seder, the Seder of all Seders on Pesach night, right? Where we use the table, the dining room table, and the Seder table to tell our story of redemption. Many have taken that and a very long tradition of eating what we call auspicious foods in a certain order, hence the word seder, but that bring us good luck and good fortune and all sorts of positive things for the year ahead, right? And it's called collectively Seder Rosh Hashanah. What happens on the evening before Rosh Hashanah, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, after saying Kiddush, the blessing over wine, and Hamotzi, blessing over bread, we eat a series of foods, most of which we don't say an actual blessing over, we say a wish. Okay? Those foods we call simanim. In modern Hebrew, a siman is simply a sign. Okay? It's just a sign. It could be a symbol, it could be something fortuitous, perhaps negative, but in this case, we're eating what we call auspicious foods, foods that have extra meaning to them. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. And each of these auspicious foods starts with what you can think of like a toast, right? These foods, first off, Rosh Hashanah in Israel, and this may not be your personal experience, it may be your personal experience. It's a happy holiday. Okay, it really is a happy holiday. Yes, we have the term in Hebrew, Yamim Noraim, the days of awe. And for some of us growing up abroad or even here in Israel, it may have felt very heavy, very serious, even scary. In Israel, there are very happy days. Yes, they have a lot of seriousness behind them and a lot of reflection. We'll talk about that more next week. But they're also happy. And this is a great example where you sit down and before you start the meal, you eat these auspicious things. And before you eat them, you basically make a toast. And each toast begins like this. Yehi ratzon melefanecha she. Okay. May it be your will, God, right? There's a whole much farther part referring to God. She, that. And then what we do is basically a word play, a pun on a specific food that has to do with something that either blesses us or or equally important curses others. So I'm going to show you an example. And I'm going to show you the actual seder, the actual order of eating these foods that many do. This is taken from the prayer book used by many Jews from Edot HaMizrach, the various communities outside of Ashkenaz and Sfarad, meaning Central Eastern Europe, or the Mediterranean basin. So, for example, this is from a great resource, Sefaria, if you're not familiar with it. So this is the text from the prayer book used for Rosh Hashanah by Edot HaMizrach, those Jewish communities outside of those regions I just said. And as it says, B'shtei leilot shel Rosh Hashanah, on the 2 nights of Rosh Hashanah, remember that Rosh Hashanah is also celebrated as 2 days here in Israel. Osim seder ze lesiman tov. You do this order, one does this order for siman tov, for good signs, for good auspicious things, right? So what do we start with? Tmarim. Tmarim are dates, D-A-T-E-S, right? And it says that one will take a date, Yikach Tamar Vayivarech Borei Pri Ha'etz. One will say the bracha, the prayer for Borei Pri Ha'etz, for a fruit tree, Veyechal, and will eat it. Ve'achal kach, and afterwards, Yikach Od Tamar, will take another date, Vayomar Bakasha Zot, and will say Bakasha. This Bakasha is in modern Hebrew a request, a supplication, a something good to happen. V'yachvin al oivim hatachtonim. Right? And the idea is it's meant against our enemies, oivim. And what is the wish, this one, right? The yehi ratzon. Yehi ratzon melefanecha, sheyitamu oivenu v'son'enu v'chol mevakshe ra'atenu. Right? May it be your will, God and God of our ancestors. Sheyitamu oivenu. The word for date in Hebrew is tamar, right? Taf mem resh. The rabbis and former and previous generations took that and did a word play on the word tamar and used the word tam. Tam, which you can find in the root of tamar, means to end something. So when you say sheitamu oivenu, by eating the date, you are ingesting the wish, right? Sheitamu oivenu. Yitamu oivenu, may our enemies, oivenu, be yitamu, be ended, right? Playing on the word tamar, yitamu. V'sun'enu v'chol mevakshe ra'atenu, not just our enemies, our haters, literally our haters, sun'enu, v'chol mevakshe ra'atenu, and all who wish upon us evil or badness or just bad. Okay? That's the gist of these. And it goes on. You can make this small. There are quite a lot. For example, there's tmarim here. There's silka, beets, right? Because the word for selek, beet, also is related to the verb lisalek, to remove, to get rid of. Karti, which is usually leeks, right? And it has the same root as the verb likaret, to cut, to excise. Kra, gourd, right? To read is has the same play on root. You see there's puns on each of these. Rubia, also known as lubia, black-eyed peas. For many, this is the origin of the tradition of eating black-eyed peas on New Year's, not just Rosh Hashanah, but also secular New Year's and so forth. Rimon matok, a sweet pomegranate. Rosh keves, yes, this is indeed where you eat a sheep's head, right? Apples and honey, most of you know this one very well with its own wish. Shetitchadesh alenu shana tova mtuka, that it may be renewed upon us, may be given to us a good and sweet year. right? And it keeps going with all sorts of other things depending on your traditions and so forth, right? This is what we call Seder Rosh Hashanah. It is very popular in Israel. Again, because the majority of Jews who live in Israel come from Sephardi Mizrahi backgrounds, where this is very much a tradition. Even the term Yehi Ratzon, which we use throughout the year in a religious context, and may it be your will, is also known. This Seder Rosh Hashanah is known by some communities, especially Sephardi communities, as the Yehi Ratzones, right? They pluralized it using Old Castilian Spanish. Say this is the set of um, traditions that we use. Okay, so let's go back to our list because what we're going to do as a preview on Wednesday is you're going to come up with your own Yehi Ratzon. Okay, I'll give you the instructions. I'll tell you more about that at the top of the hour. But let's get into the depths of our class today. First off, the words for blessings, wishes, and curses. The word in Hebrew for blessing, bracha. Whether you say bracha with a resh, bracha with a resh, or bracha with a resh, any of them are fine. Remember, we've talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again several times tonight. In modern Hebrew, the default emphasis is on the last syllable, bracha, right? Bracha. Some of you may be used to saying it on the penultimate syllable, the syllable before the last. Modern Hebrew, bracha. Okay? Plural, brachot. Simple enough, right? Let's get to wishes. Yes, we do have wishes in Jewish tradition and certainly in Israeli society. We have two different words that we use in modern Hebrew for wish, and they do have a slight difference. Mish'alah and mish'alot, the plural, and ichul and ichulim. What's the difference? Mishalah and mish'alot is a wish mainly for yourself, something you would wish for yourself. Think of the tradition of blowing out candles on a birthday cake. That's a mish'alah, something that you say to yourself that you keep to yourself. That's personal, that's private even. It may not always be private, but it's certainly for yourself or that benefits you. And ichul, or ichulim in plural, is wishes for others. It's what you would wish to someone else. For example, wishing them a happy birthday. That would be an example of an ichul, not a mish'alah. A mish'alah is what you would give yourself. Ichul is what you would give to someone else. Okay? Slight difference, but important. They both mean wishes. Okay? And then, of course, curses, because a lot of the way that we formulate blessings and wishes in Hebrew is the same exact way we formulate a curse in terms of what's the structure of the sentence, what's the structure of how we wish it, what tense we use, what words we use, as you just saw. For example, what we just said, the one about dates, right? That's not a positive thing for us. That's a negative thing to someone else. Many people would take that as a curse, as much as it is hopefully shielding us from things, but it's Yitamu oivenu. May our enemies be yitamu, erased, right? Curse, for lack of a better term. Curse in Hebrew, klala, klalot, plural. This is as much a curse like a sentence, but also a curse word. You could also use as a klala, call a klala. Okay. And finally, since we're talking about New Year, and many of us are thinking about the last year and year ahead, we use a term that you also hear in secular society, achlatot. Achlatot in this context means resolutions, right? Many of us have resolutions for the year ahead. And again, that could be the Jewish year, that could be the secular year. Achlatot. This word also in modern Hebrew means decisions. Lahachlit means to decide. And it's an interesting connection, right, between resolutions and decisions. It makes it a little bit more serious, a little bit more realistic. That when we talk about resolutions in the Gregorian calendar, oh yeah, I resolved to do that, and how many of us don't do it? That in Hebrew, it's related to the word decision. It's something that you're taking a more decisive measure to do, or that you're committing to. Whether or not it happens, at least it has a little bit more, as we say, oomph behind it. Okay, now that we've done the general categories, let's get into some of the ways we frame these. Wednesday, we're going to practice these a lot. You're going to come and talk about and ask each other, what you wish for in the coming year, and you're going to be able to answer. And these are some of the prompts you're going to use. So if you want that practice again, Wednesday is your time, regardless of level. I'll explain at the top of the hour a little bit more. I hope, the verb for I hope. Ani mekaveh, masculine. Ani mekavah, feminine. I expect. Ani mitzapeh, masculine. Ani mitzapah, feminine. Ani sho'ef, masculine. I aspire. Ani sho'efet, I aspire, feminine. Ani choshesh, masculine. Ani chosheshet, feminine. I fear or I'm afraid of. And finally, ani cholem, ani cholemet al, I dream of or I dream about. Okay? 5 great ways to start a sentence about what you're looking for, a blessing, a wish, or even a curse, right? Of how you're going to articulate that. Now let's get into some very specific ones. Now that we've gotten through sort of the generals and how to start framing it, let's go through ones maybe you know, maybe you don't know. And again, pronunciation is going to be key in modern Hebrew. L'chaim. L'chaim, you're probably all familiar with. L'chaim is the equivalent in modern Hebrew to cheers. This is what you normally say when you toast, whether you're at a bar, at an event, at home, whatever it is, l'chaim. That literally means to life. That is our equivalent in modern Hebrew of cheers. Okay, l'chaim. Very easy one to do, and a very common one. Kol hakavod. Kol hakavod means all the honor. It literally translates to all the honor, but it's best translated as good job. Why did I translate it as good job? Because oftentimes, just like all sorts of other ones in other languages, we can also use it sarcastically. Someone drops a plate, kol hakavod. Someone does something wrong at work, or someone does something right at work. You can all use those as kol hakavod. Literally all the honor. Think of it as good job. Okay. Now we come to one of the heavy hitters. We did l'chaim, we did kol hakavod. Now one of the heavy hitters, mazal tov. Listen to how I say it, folks. And please stop if you're writing in the chat, if you're writing any questions, listen very carefully. Mazal tov. Remember what I talked about, that the emphasis in modern Hebrew is on the last syllable? Mazal tov. You even see that with that little dot there, right? In the zayin, the second letter there. That indicates where the emphasis is. Mazal tov. And that's how you're going to hear it. Mazal tov, mazal tov, right? That's how you're going to hear it. Mazal tov means congratulations. We use this all the time for something that's happened. Most importantly, this is how you're going to wish someone happy birthday. Oftentimes, you are not going to either read it on Facebook or on Instagram or at a party itself. You're not going to hear someone say Yom Huledet Sameach. Why? Remember what we talked about last week, or remember we talked about it almost every single week. Yom Huledet Sameach, Mazal Tov. 7 syllables versus 3 syllables, and I'm saying the exact same thing. The 3 syllables will always win. Okay, it's Mazal Tov. Mazal Tov is used for everything. Someone's birthday. You'll wish someone a birthday, whether it's online, whether it's by text, whether it's in person. Someone gets married. Mazal Tov. Whether you're at the wedding or not. Someone has given birth. Mazal Tov. Someone has graduated from a degree. Someone has made aliyah. Someone has done something. Emphasis is on done something. The action that you're wishing, that you're blessing, is completed. That's when you say mazal tov. Okay? And it's mazal tov in modern Hebrew. The next one also means congratulations, but we don't say it just any time, just like we don't say mazal tov all the time. The other one is b'sha'a tova. For some people, B'sha Tova is a bit more religious in meaning, but it does have its difference in modern Hebrew. B'sha'a Tova is reserved for events that haven't completely finished yet. For example, if someone indicates you, and in Jewish tradition, it's usually indirectly, that they're pregnant, right? We even say in English, expecting, right? To not put the evil eye, to not jinx it, to not do anything to, God forbid, also a type of wish, bring harm to both the fetus and the mother to be, we say Bisha Tova. Literally means in a good hour or at a good time. So, for example, if you find out someone is indeed expecting, you can say Bisha Tova. You do not say, and this is a traditional thing, this is a customary thing, but it is an important distinction. You would not say Mazal Tov. Why? Because it hasn't finished. They have not given birth yet. The moment they give birth, Mazal Tov. 9 months before, all 9 months before, Bisha Tova. Anything like that. Someone scores a really important interview, but the interview has not taken place, Bisha Tova. Someone is about to complete their last exam. We have another term for that we'll see in a second, but you can also wish Bisha Tova. Anything for events that have not yet taken place or have not taken place in their completion, Bisha Tova. Very important distinction. I like to think we have the Hebrew for it, we should use it. For those of you who like a good surprise party, we say the exact same thing when the lights go on and you jump up from behind the couch. Hafta. Hafta is literally surprise in Hebrew. A surprise in Hebrew is hafta'ah, so we scream hafta, surprise, right? This one, some of you may be familiar with a different pronunciation. In modern Hebrew, it goes like this: Yishal kochecha to a male, or Yishal kochech to a female, right? This is more religious in meaning, and I'm going to put that here, more religious in context, meaning that if you're at work, for example, and you wish someone, you want to say good job, you're going to say kol hakavod. If you say this one to a excuse me, a colleague at work who isn't necessarily religiously observant, they may not know this one. They may know the meaning, they'll know the meaning of it, but it won't resonate the same way. Okay, this is more religious in context. Yishal kocha, yishal kochech. Okay, good job. Literally, not literally, good job. Okay. This next one is a great one to use, and I hope all of you find a way to use this because it's not just a good excuse to use, to find reasons to use it, but it's also just a beautiful word. Titradesh. Titradesh, you would say to a male, titradshi to a female, and titradshu to a group of people. It's said to someone after doing something new or getting something new. For example, your friend gets a haircut and you see them for the first time, or they told you, I just got a haircut. The first thing you say is titradesh or titradshi, depending on their gender. Someone buys a new car. Someone does usually a purchase of some kind for the first time, or you're going clothes shopping with them, and the moment they leave the register, you can say titradesh or titradshi. It's a really nice one. It comes from the word chadash, excuse me, new. Lechadesh is to renew. Lehitchadesh to become renewed. So you're saying to them, may you become renewed through this purchase, through this action you've just done. May you become renewed in who you are. It's a really beautiful word, a great reason to use it. Find those reasons. Okay, now we're going to get to some others. Sachten. The next two are Arabic in origin, both because we live in the Middle East. Again, the majority of Jews who live in Israel come from regions that used Arabic as an everyday language. And 20% of our population here in the state of Israel are Arabic speaking. We use a lot of Arabic in our slang and everyday life. For example, the Arabic wish, sachten. In Arabic, it would sound more like sahten. In Hebrew, we say sachten. Sachten also can translate to good job. It comes from the Arabic word for health. We're going to see a lot of health-related ones tonight. And it means double health. You wish it to someone after doing something good, sachten, right? Good job. Sachten is also a great cheers, alternative, all sorts of other things like that, but in the same family. Congratulations. In Arabic, it's mabruk. In Hebrew, we would say mabruk, right? Because the resh is usually standardized as that sound. You can also say resh. You can also say resh if you can't do either, right? Mabruk comes from Arabic, sounds exactly like our word for blessing, bracha. It shares the same root throughout many Semitic languages, and we say mabruk. Mabruk or mabruk alek, which is the full Arabic expression, blessings upon you. is a more literal translation. We have a lot of party songs, wedding songs, um, happy occasion songs, both in Arabic and in Hebrew with this word mabruk. Okay. And then finally, ba'atzlacha. Ba'atzlacha comes from the verb, excuse me, lahatzliach, to succeed. And when you wish someone ba'atzlacha, it means good luck. We don't translate good luck literally. Mazal tov actually is closer to the literal translation, good luck, but instead, wishing someone ahead of a test, ahead of an interview, ahead of anything momentous, ba'atzlacha is the equivalent in English of good luck. Okay. Now, very important ones. I said we are going to talk about health, and we are definitely talking about health. This first one only is positive. Okay, let me write that here. When we talk about blessings, wishes, and curses, a great way to think about this is the power of words. And words have had power in human civilization for thousands of years, including in Jewish tradition. As much as telling stories and telling facts as it is, um, wishing is, for lack of a better term, a form of magic. And we need to think about that in the language we use and what we're trying to say and not say, but still communicate. These are two great examples. A slight change of the wording creates a totally different intention. Rak briut. Rak briut literally translates to only health. Rak means only or just, and briut means health. Rak briut, if you say this to someone, you are wishing them only health. May you only have good health. The good is intended, it's understood without saying it. Rak briut. שתהיה לכם רק בריאות. May you all have only good health. I don't have to say the good part because it's understood in this formulation. When it's not understood is this next one. תהיה בריא, said to a male, or תהי בריאה, said to a female. This does not mean what you think it means, folks. If you want to say positively to someone, may you be well, you're going to use this guy. רק בריאות. If you want to say it in the sense of you should have good health because, or you really got to hold on to that, that's this guy. תהיה בריא, תהי בריאה. In almost all Jewish communities, it has the same meaning, regardless of what Jewish auxiliary language they're using, whether it's Yiddish's sei gesund, or in Ladino, or in Judeo-Arabic, or many others. This one carries what we would say a bit of a curse. You don't wish this to someone intending good. You say this to someone intending you should be so healthy. Like that's the meaning of it. תהיה בריא, תהי בריאה. Don't use this one sparingly. I will give you an example. I just used it the other week. I ordered coffee. I was out of coffee at home. I spent, 1,000 shekels at the nearby kiosk to buy it. And this woman who knew the barista behind the counter just basically pushes in front of me in the line of waiting for their coffees, having a great jovial conversation, and just naturally reaches for when my coffee order, which also happened to be hers, comes to the counter, even though I had ordered at least 5 minutes in advance. She goes to reach for it. The barista says my name, and she goes, oh, and she makes up all sorts of excuses as to why she picked it up. And I said, Tibria. After she fell on herself to make all sorts of excuses as to why she didn't, Tibria, meaning hold on to your health, right? Not the nicest thing to say, but when the occasion calls for it, sometimes you got to go towards our latter category tonight. So I'm going to put here meant to be cautionary for the recipient. Okay. Don't use this one if your intentions are generally wishing someone good health. This is, may you be, you need to hold on to your health because something's wrong. Okay, that's the difference between these two. An important difference, by the way, because you will hear both of these all the time in Israel. Two that unfortunately you hear a lot lately, and you've heard for quite a while now, and are important ones, including one I sign off on, certainly on Wednesdays, if not on Mondays as well here. Rak bismachot. Rak bismachot literally means only in good times, right? We use this in the sense of may we only meet in good times. May you only have good times. May only good times be ahead of you. Positive, understanding that the current situation is not. Okay, rak besmachot. It doesn't just mean may we meet in good times, which is a common expression across languages. It really means may for the person who's receiving this blessing really have only good times ahead. Okay? Related to, but slightly different than besorot tovot. Besorot tovot, the word besorah means a tiding, that old-fashioned word we only hear at the end of the secular year, right? Besorah means a piece of news. Okay, so besorot tovot is short for may we only have good news, right? It literally translates to good news, besorot tovot, but it's the longer expression we understand to mean may you only have good news, may we only have good news. So if you wish someone besorot tovot, it means that they just received bad news or the situation is not great. And that's a very common expression you'll hear in the past 22 months or 23 months actually now. Well, Bisorot Tovot. May we only have good news. Okay, that's what these two mean. Both in um, hoping for a more positive um, near future than the current present. Is the best way to think of these two. Okay, then let me just add this here so you all can see that. There we go. Okay, now let's get into some craft your own wishes and curses, by the way. You saw some of these in our Seder Rosh Hashana, in the way they were framed, right? Sheyitamu oivenu, shetitchadesh aleinu shana tova amtuka. She, the article she, is a prefix, and it's short for asher. She means that. In modern Hebrew, when you start a word or sentence with the article she, in the future tense, you're saying that something should happen. May something happen. Okay? So if you want to say that for all of us, she ne, right? The ne stands for the future tense first person plural. Those of you who already know the future tense, you know that all future tense verbs are primarily marked by prefixes and not suffixes, like in the past tense. For example, may we, right? She Shenitchadesh. May we be renewed. Okay? Shenitchadesh. Shenipagesh bekarov. May we meet soon. Let's start with Shenipagesh bekarov, right? Let me write that out for you so you see an example. Shenipagesh bekarov versus what if I take off that shin? Nipagesh bekarov. What's the difference in meaning? Both of these are using the future tense of the verb lihipagesh to meet up in the first person plural, we. Bekarov, soon. Okay? Nipagesh bekarov, we'll meet up soon. Or we will meet up, right? We will meet up soon. Shenipagesh bekarov, may we meet up soon. We haven't confirmed the time yet, but let's hope, let's wish that it happens. That's the difference between these two. This is may we meet up soon versus we will meet up soon. Okay, slight but important difference between the two. Shenipagesh bekarov, may we meet up soon, versus nipagesh bekarov, we're meeting up soon. Okay? The same formulation can be used in first and third person only. So we just did shenipagesh, may we. Now you can do it in third person. May he, may she, or may they. Again, she followed by the future tense. So sheyipagshu bekarov, may they meet up soon. שיתקבל לתוכנית. May he be accepted into the program. שתתקבל תקבל את כל מה שהיא רוצה. May she get everything she wants. Right? All of those are in the first or third person. Okay? May we, may he, may she, may they. Let's say you want to do it in the second person, whether it's directly to someone or a group of people. This is where you're going to use either simply the future tense second person, or you're going to use the verb lalechet. Lalechet means to go. And this is where you would say lech or lechi. And this is also one way you can curse someone. Why? Because as you see in the English, this easily sets you up to curse someone. Lech le, go to, or lech, and then followed by the verb. So if you want to say, for example, in modern Hebrew, go to hell. Go to hell in Hebrew is lech le'azazel. Azazel, many of you know from one of the upcoming holidays, is the wilderness where we send one of the sacrificial goats on Yom Kippurim, right? In modern Hebrew or in Jewish tradition, that is meant as the equivalent of saying go to hell. Lech le'azazel, right? This is where it comes from. You can fill in all sorts of things here. And again, a shout out for our Wednesday class because it's unrecorded. You'll get to hear some very spicy curses here if you so desire. So good reason to join us on Wednesday. Curses are an integral part of languages for thousands of years. It doesn't just stop in modern Hebrew. And modern Hebrew, by the way, has some choice ones, as we've had for thousands of years in the Hebrew language. Don't think we're above it, folks. If you want to say to someone directly something more positive, you're going to use this formulation. שיהיה לך or שיהיה לך, שתהיה לך or שתהיה לך. We've covered this before. This has to do with possessions, where we take the verb lihiot, to be, and when it's followed by the preposition le, li, lecha, lo, la, lanu, and so forth, it becomes may you have. Okay, so if I want to say to an individual, שתהיה לך שנה טובה. Let me write that out for you so you see all the different moving parts of it. Let's do the whole thing. Okay, I can simply wish someone shana tova, and it's understood, or shana tova umtuka. Totally all right. If I want to personalize it, I'm going to say shetiye lecha. Why shetiye lecha? Very important. Shetiye. Why did I do tihiye, the feminine version, in the future tense? Because I'm talking about a shana tova. When we do this framework, when we talk about may you have something, the having has to do with the object, right? The object becomes the subject in Hebrew. We do not have in Hebrew the equivalent of the verb to have. It does not exist. We instead use this combination of the verb to be plus the preposition to, right? So, shetie lecha shana tova mtuka, I'm speaking to a male, lecha, right? Because I'm saying it aloud, I know it's lecha, but the tiye refers to shana tova. Okay, shana is feminine, therefore the verb is feminine, tiye. Lecha has to do with the male I'm speaking to, but nothing else in this sentence other than lecha refers to him. Everything is about that sweet new year. Okay, very important distinction, a very common expression to say this to an individual. May you masculine have a good and sweet year. Okay, that's what that means. Let's move on. We're running out of time here. Yechi and techi. These are not necessarily expressions that my fellow Americans would know, but for those of you who are coming from Commonwealth countries, you probably know these terms already. Yechi and techi come from the verb lechiot, to live. Yechi, used before a masculine person or object, and techi before a feminine person or object means long live. So if you want to say long live the king, yechi hamelech. If you want to say long live the queen, Techi Hamalka. If you want to say, those who are more inclined, long live the revolution, Techi Hamapecha. Okay, that's how we use this term. Again, another wish. And finally, from Arabic, we have one that you're going to hear all the time in Israel, is ya. Ya is an article in Arabic that you use before a direct object. And I don't mean direct object in the same way we have et. In Hebrew, I mean when you're speaking directly to someone. So let's say I am speaking to Rena, right? Rena, my trusted colleague here on the call. And if I was speaking to her directly, I would say, yeah, Rena, right? That indicates I'm speaking only to Rena when I'm talking. And anything I say afterwards is that. In Hebrew, as in Arabic, specifically in Hebrew slang, we can use this and call someone something good or perhaps not so good as a wish or a blessing or indeed as a curse. So I can follow yeah with something as innocent as yamatok. Oh, you're such a sweetie, right? And instead of saying matok or matokata, what a sweetie you are, I'm saying yamatok, what a sweetie, because I'm speaking directly to someone. Yeah indicates direct conversation with someone. Or instead of matok, sweetie, I can say something not so nice, right? Fill in the blank there. Let's do some more examples here. We have three different ways in modern Hebrew at the beginning of a wish. We had all those verbs at the beginning. We had the expressions. We had a couple others along the way. These are other ways to say a much longer wish that may be more complex, has more sentences, more individual parts that all work together, right? And they all translate to may it be. Miyiten, luyihi, and halevai. You've probably heard at least one of these before, and it's always followed by a blessing or a wish, usually in the future tense. May something happen soon. Okay. And the reply to those, we have a couple different ones. Amen. We use all the time, regardless of religious connotation. Amen means amen, comes from us. We're the originators of this word, right? Ken yehi ratzon, may it be so, much more religious in meaning. Or the one I like because I love the translation of right back at you. I'd like to put a copyright on that, but we'll see. Is bekarov etzlecha, or to a female, bekarov etzlech. Bekarov we just learned is soon. Etzlecha and etzlech is a preposition we use in Hebrew to indicate in or by someone. Many of you have probably heard it translated by people as by, right? If I'm going to Shabbat dinner at so-and-so's house, we say ani etzel so-and-so's house. Sometimes that's translated as I'm eating by so-and-so's house, right? So this is often translated as soon by you, right? Some of you may know that translation. I think there's even a TV show or some small program that's called Soon by You, right? Soon by you. But it's best understood as right back at you. Why? Because if someone wishes you something good, batzlacha, mazal tov, kol hakavod, yishar kocha, mabruk, any of those things on an important achievement that you've done, you can wish them in return bekarov etzlecha or bekarov etzlech, depending on their gender, which means thank you so much. I appreciate all that. May soon be by you the same honor of being wished, both the achievement and the wish that comes with it. Okay, I'm going to stop here for questions, but first off, Toda Rabba, we're now at 336 participants. Absolutely amazing. Toda Rabba, thank you all for joining. Before I get to questions, again, Wednesday's class is Cafe Oleh Conversations, and we're going to take today's class, and you're going to practice in small groups depending on your current proficiency level. You're going to be practicing wishing and making wishes for each other. So you're going to learn how to raise a toast. For example, at this time of year, it's very common in workplaces, in community centers, even at synagogues, to have a communal toast before the holiday season. So you're going to learn what's the word for toast, how to make a toast. You're going to practice making toasts. You're also going to practice asking each other, what are you wishing for in the year ahead, and how to practice answering it, right? Communication goes both ways. So you're going to practice all of those. And you can even practice as one of the options I'm going to give you how to construct your own siman, your own auspicious food to eat for the Seder Rosh Hashanah, because people get very creative with this in all sorts of languages, certainly in Hebrew. So if there's a food you like, maybe we can find a word play. That's also a great way to usher a good year ahead. Okay, all of those in Wednesday's class. Highly recommend you all sign up. Same time on Wednesday, same place here on Zoom. If you haven't signed up before, Rena's posted the link in the chat. It's also on Nefesh B'Nefesh's website. Regardless of what level, we welcome everyone. You'll have a place. You'll be able to practice in small groups. Highly recommend joining us. Before I get to Q&A, next week's class is what I call the holiday season primer. I purposely use the word holiday season. I know some people have written back to me saying, why are you using words from a certain other religion? Folks, we've been around for so long, I really could care less. We should all care less what other people think of ourselves. It's our holiday season. It is a long, long season. We have every right and every ability to use the word season because we are, as we say in Hebrew, mamash, really a holiday season. We have weeks and weeks coming up with weeks of preparation in advance. We're going to go through the entire holiday season, Jewish fall holiday season, next week from beginning to end, all what to expect, how it's celebrated typically here in Israel. And just as we did for Pesach, we're also going to look at terms that we use at this time of year that we use all throughout the year. Okay, there are certain terms that we think only have to do with the fall holidays, when in fact we use them all year. You may not be recognizing them, but you'll hear them once I share with you. There's a lot of terms we take out of this holiday season because it means so much to us, and we use throughout the year. With that, let me get to some Q&A. Is it possible to send out the new words each week right after the Wednesday class so we have more time to learn them? Sadly, no. This class is really meant to be everyday Hebrew. So for example, when we do our how to read the news is coming from that morning. I can't give it to you from Wednesday night previous week because the news is already old. So the practice is coming to class today. You'll get the sheet, and then you'll be able to practice for the week ahead. If you join us on Wednesdays, you'll get the questions and all the vocabulary needed at least 24 hours in advance. Are ani choshesh and ani mefached synonyms? Great question. Ani choshesh means I fear, and ani mefached, I'm afraid of. Are they related? Yes. And I do translate ani choshesh, I'm fearful of, is a better way to translate it. So yes, they are very much related. Are they exact synonyms? No, but 95%. The way I would read the Hebrew would be aha. So like I said, folks, we focus on modern Hebrew. The modern Hebrew pronunciation of this term here is isha kocha or isha kochech. Okay, that's the modern Hebrew pronunciation. Just like Mazal Tov and others on this list, you probably have other pronunciations based on where you come from in diaspora. We focus on modern Hebrew here. It's Yishal Kocha, Yishal Kochech. Okay. Please say and spell out the words for bon voyage. Nesia Tova. I'll add that to the list before we send it out. Nesia Tova, same for male or female. Nesia Tova. I previously learned to say Tieh Bari to someone who is maybe ill, but you are wishing to heal quickly. Is it wrong? That is wrong. I will teach you how to say may you heal quickly, which is either for in a more religious context, refuah shlema, or in modern Hebrew, hachlama mehira, literally a speedy recovery. I'll include those in the list as well, but do not say, please, for the sake of the evil eye on yourself or on others, and we do believe that here in Israeli society, do not say Tieh Bari to someone who is ill. You can say Rak Briut. You can say any of the ones I just said. Do not say Tieh Bari. Is a word like Sartain used by itself, or how does it fit in a sentence? You say use Sartain just like you use Mazal Tov. It's an expression, right? And you can use it on its own. Ah, sachten. Simple as that. Would you add a time or date after nipagesh bekarov? No. Why? We will meet soon. Soon is the timestamp. Soon is a form, a measurement of time. It may not be an exact measurement of time, but it is definitely a measurement of time. The follow-up can be matai, when, and then you can fill in a time or date. How would you say, may you meet up soon? I'm going to let you use our trusty verb conjugation service, pe'alim.com, which I've shared with you before, to conjugate the verb lihipagesh. That is a great homework assignment for those who have that question. Is there a difference in lach leshalom or lech b'shalom? Yes, we do not use either of those in modern Hebrew. That is a very antiquated expression in Hebrew. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it is antiquated. You're not going to hear that very often, certainly by anyone under a certain age. Lech b'shalom, lech leshalom, we don't normally use that. That is a very old, beautiful, but old expression you're not going to hear as much. Is lech le'azazel considered profanity? Yes. You're telling someone to go to hell. It is not bleeped out, but it is not a nice thing to say to someone. There are worse things to say for sure, and maybe on Wednesday we'll go over those, but it is not something you would say unless you are in a very hostile situation. Culturally, are curses more socially acceptable in Israel? For example, if the US, if someone took my coffee and I sarcastically said, stay healthy, that would be considered very aggressive and could escalate to a bigger fight. Yes. You heard my illustration of Tie Bari. That's aggressive. That works in that context because the woman overstepped cultural and social bonds, right? We don't use curses unless they're necessary. Tie Bari is a good example of the middle ground where it can go either way because on the surface, it's a good thing. Its intention is a different story. Anything else like Lech La'azazel is aggressive. You're not going to just throw that out, certainly to a complete stranger. You are asking for a fight if you said that to a complete stranger, or they did something so offensive to you, they're worthy of it. But otherwise, it's not that they're socially acceptable in using. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're just taken in stride. Is Yamato condescending or sexist? No. You would never say Yamato to someone who isn't actually matok to you, someone who isn't sweet or sweetie to you. Never. Ya again comes from Arabic when you're just directly speaking to someone, right? So for good or bad, you're directly communicating with someone. So the word that you use either means like matok, good, or if something that's not good, yam shuga, you crazy person. Again, context is important. If I said that to a friend, they'd be like, oh, you're so crazy today. If I say that to a complete stranger, that's not such a nice thing. Yamatok, would you only say that to a male? Yametuka, absolutely, if I was going to really get into it. Or I could simply say Yamotek. Motek is a sweetie, a sweetheart, gender inclusive. Any helpful hint to remember which is to expect versus which is to view? Litzpot and litzapot. Practice. I don't know off the top of my head, I don't know a mnemonic device to remember either, but litzpot is to watch, litzapot to expect, both coming from the same root. Isn't Amen Rosh Tevot an abbreviation for? That's a great religious commentary on the word Amen, but that is religion, not based in linguistics. Amen comes from the root Aleph Mem Nun, from which we get words like emunah, faith, la amin, to believe, and so forth. Whether you want to read to it that more, that's up to you and your own faith. Is it possible that Israeli 70 plus 5 years will still say Tihi Bria to me and still mean in a good sense? Yes. Look, Tihi Bari, I know this is confusing. Tihi Bari sounds good and it could be good, but it can also sound good and not be good. Connotation and context is going to be key. How does someone say it to you? Are they looking at you? Are they walking away? Did something else happen when they say that to you? Is something else going on in general? Okay. You need to, there's a lot of other context clues when we're using a language, folks, not just the words itself. So it could mean something very good. I will say from my personal experience, when it's been wished upon me, it's always been by someone older, and it had that slight meaning of you better watch it. So again, context is key. If that's a issue for you, maybe on Wednesday we can go through some um, counter curses, as we should say. Um, any suggestions of links for vegetarians for Seder Rosh Hashanah? There are great guides in all sorts of languages on Seder Rosh Hashanah. Great homework for all of you to use to search on your own. Talgish Tov is a great way also to feel well. I'll be sure to include that in the link before we send it out. Where's the URL for declining verbs? We've done this before, pe'alim.com. Can simply, that's literally the URL, but you can also type in pe'alim.com, Pealim. Okay, folks, we are out of time. Toda rabah, thank you all for joining. I hope to see many of you this Wednesday for Cafe Oleh Conversations, where we'll go through much of what we covered today. Otherwise, I'll see you next week for our annual Jewish holiday season primer, going through all the holidays, the dates, what to expect in Israel, what not to expect in Israel, the different expressions that you heard tonight, and some more, and the ways that the holiday season is with us all year round in Israeli society. Until then, Bisorot Tovot, as I just taught you, now you know what that means, and I will see you all this week and next. Until then, Litrot.